Es Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Baba Kamma Daf Yud Aleph, and we will begin on Daf Yud Amid Beis, and we're going to start from like in middle of the page towards where it gets the lines get wide. Very simple. When a person gets into a car accident and the car is totaled, who gets to keep the car? So that's a question. So we're dealing with that same question over here. Is when, let's say, an animal is gored and killed, what's the halacha with that dead animal? Who really does that animal belong to? So the Mishnah says, "Chafti b'tashlume niskai." When you damage, you have to pay back the nezek, that the victim that you damage. Chafti b'niskai, you have to pay the damages. Loikatani. It doesn't say you have to pay 100% of the damages. Ella, rather it says batashlume niska, you pay a payment for the damages. So from that expression tashlume, it means that you're not paying 100% of the damage because the carcass itself is worth money, and that carcass belongs to the victim, the owner of the animal, and therefore you have to estimate what the animal was worth when it was alive, and now when it's dead. And you pay the difference. That's the mazik will pay the difference. Tanina lahadu tanarabanan. This is exactly what this brisa says. Tashlumi nezek. You have to pay the payment of the damages. Melamed. This teaches you shahabaalim metaplim benevela, that the owner of the victim, the animal that died, that's the one that has to be busy itself with the carcass, and that he really owns the carcass. So he really got, he has some money. It's the mazik who has to make up the difference. Says the Gemara, how do I know that? Omar Ami, the Omakra, because there's a pasuk that says like this: Make nefesh behema yishal menu. If a human being kills an animal, let's say he went hunting and you killed an animal, you have to pay back the animal. Al tikru yishal menu. Don't read it as if you have to pay the animal, because then it should say yishalem. But el yashli menu, you make him whole. Yashli menu, make him whole. That means that the carcass of the animal belongs to its original owner, and the killer, the human that killed that animal, has to just make that victim, the owner of the dead animal, whole. That's one source. Rav Kahana Amar Mahacha. Rav Kahana says, I have another source. This source is from a shomer sachar. A shomer sachar was negligent, a watchman that was negligent. He was supposed to watch an animal, and wolves came in and tore the animal. Right, you left the door of the pen open or the barn open, and the wolves came in and destroyed the animal. So im tarif yitreif if v'eu aid atreif lo yishalem. The pasuk says you have to bring witness, but don't give the mauled animal. What does that mean? So we darshan ad treifa yishalem. The mauled animal, you don't have to pay. You just give it back to its original owner. But up until then, the difference between the animal when it was alive till the animal as it is when it's killed, that's what you have to pay. So here's another source. Chizkiya Amar. Chizkiya says Mahacha from over here. Okay. Hi, Sheldon, we just began. We're on Daf Yud Amid Beis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the pasuk says over here, let's say right over here, when your shar or somebody's shar kills another shar, right? The Torah says, "V'hameis yeloi." It means if it was a shar mu'ed, you have to pay the whole thing. V'hameis yeloi, but the dead animal, the carcass, belongs to him. Who does the dead animal, the carcass, belong to? The victim. And all you have to do is pay the difference between a live animal and a dead animal. That's the third source. It belongs to the nizik. The carcass belongs to the one that got damaged. Maybe you tell me that it belongs to the nizik, but maybe I'll tell you it belongs to the mazik, which means the one that did the damage, and therefore he gets to keep this carcass, and the mazik, all he has to do, hold on, the mazik, all he has to do is pay for a brand new animal. Maybe that's, so the Gemara says, Amarta loy kachoya, that can't be. My loy kachoya, why can't it be that way, that the mazik keeps the carcass? Amar Abaya explained, Isal kedaitach nevela, the mazik havya, if you think that the nevela belongs to the mazik, lichtev rachmanu, what should the Torah write? When your ox kills somebody else's ox, shor tachash ashor, pay him for an ox. That's it. Then I know you pay for the 100%. Velishtek, and the Torah should be quiet. Why does the Torah say that you can keep the dead animal? It really belongs to the nizik, the one that got damaged. And all the mazik has to do is pay the difference between a dead animal and a live animal. And now we have three sources that you never pay the dead animal. The dead animal belongs to the nizik, and all you have to do is pay for the damages. The difference. Utsricha. The Ikas of Rahman, I need three sources. If the Torah would have written one source, Maki Behem Shalmeno, when a human being kills another animal, he has to make the owner of that animal whole. Mishum Deloy Shchicha. That's not common that humans kill animals. Aval Treifa, the Shchicha Emaloi, but the case of the Shomer Sachar, where he was negligent and allowed wolves to enter the pen of an animal that he was watching and kill that animal, that's a common case. I might think that we don't go easy on the shomer, and he would have to pay 100% of the damage he caused. Tzricha, that's why the pasuk says over there, no, that the dead animal belongs to its original owner. The Yashmin and Treifev would say only by the shomer sachar mishum de memela, because over there the reason why we go easy on the shomer sachar, because he didn't actually kill an animal. He allowed wolves to come in to hit the pen, and that's how the animal got killed. But if you actually kill an animal, it's your human hands that took a shotgun and killed an animal, I would think you have to pay the owner a full animal, and you should be busy with the dead animal. That's why I need that posik that maki behemin nefesh behemi shalmenu. No, that the dead animal belongs to the nizik. V'yashmin hanitarte, would say by the two cases, by meka nefesh and imtaraf yitaref hamishum loy shchicha v'hamishum the male. Both one case is because it's not common, and one because you didn't actually kill it, you allowed it to happen. Aval mesia loy. If it's your animal that killed another animal, the shchicha uviyadayim, that's a common occurrence. Uviyadayim, and it's your animal that actually killed something else, another animal. Eimaloy, I might think you don't go easy on the mazik, and he has to pay full damages, 100%, to replace the ox that was killed. That's why I need the pasuk of Hamesi Eloi. If it would just have that pasuk, because there it's your shore that did the hezek. But the case of maki nefesh behema yishalmeno, the begufo mazik, you're actually killing the animal by yourself, or by the shomer, the human is causing the killing of the animal by allowing wolves to enter into the pen. I might think you don't go easy on the mazik and allow him to have the carcass as part of the payment. That's why you need all three psukim. Okay, so what we learned over here so far is that the carcass of the animal belongs to the nizik. It's only because you have the pasuk v'hamesi eloi. If you didn't have the pasuk, I would have thought the carcass that was killed belongs to the mazik, and therefore he has to replace the animal. The truth is that a mazik never has to replace an animal. He could pay whichever way he has available to him. Because if the mazik had a bunch of dead animals, he could use that as payment. There's no mitzvah to give him the exact shor. You could pay. We learned in a Braisa, Yoshev, when it comes to paying for damages, the Rabba Shvei Kesef, you can pay for damages by giving the value of money. Let's say you have bran. You have an extra bran, or you have extra bicycles in your yard. You can give that to the nizik. So certainly you can give the carcass of the animal. So the day Meboya, if it's his carcass, certainly he can give it as payment. So what would I think any different? Why do I have to this? Why would I ever think that this nevela belongs to the mazik? And says the Gemara, and here's the point: lepchas nevela. Yes, to the diminishing value of the carcass. What does that mean? That means like this: that from the time that the animal died until you actually have the court case, right? So there's a diminishing value of the animal because the carcass gets worth less day by day. Who takes responsibility of that carcass? That's diminishing value from the time that it died till the time that you go to court. That is even the nizik has to take that responsibility. So therefore, it's on the nizik. As soon as this animal is dead, he should try to sell it right away. Because if he just leaves it as a dead animal and waits till the court hears his case, then the animal is going to go down in value, and it's his loss. So therefore, the pchas nevela, the diminishing value of that of carcass, is on the onus is on the nizik. So the Gemara says, let us say that the diminishing value of a nevela is a mechloikis tanoim. The Tanya, we learned in a brisa, in Taref Yutaref, Yuvi we go to Daf Yud Aleph Amral. Yavi Edim Shnitfavu Ba'oinis, Upater. So bring Edim that you have to bring Edis, that this is a Shomer Sachar, and the animal got mauled. So what the pasuk is saying, that Edim should come and say that this animal, it wasn't his fault. The wolves somehow, burrowed their way into the barn, despite the best efforts of the shomer. Upater, and the shomer will be pater. That's what the Tanna Kamma learns from that pasuk. Abba Shaul learns that pasuk, and it says Yavi Aduda lebezdin. That Aduda is another like fancy vocabulary word that the mazik, the shomer, should bring the carcass to bezdin, and that is deducted from his payment. Oh, so we see over here that the shomer could bring the carcass to bezdin. So what is the machlokes all about? My lab palgi. This is the argument. The Mar Sovar, that the Tanna Kamma holds pchas nevela the nizik. The loss of the nevela belongs to the nizik. Umar Sovar, and the diminishing and Rab Abba Shaul holds the loss, the diminishing value of the nevela is on the onus of the mazik, because you can't say that Abba Shaul is saying that even if this animal was mauled and wasn't the shomer's fault, he's obligated to pay. That's certainly not, because a shomer sachar is not obligated to pay when there's einzin. But what the rather is the pasuk saying is when it is his fault and he has to pay, the shomer has to pay. He has to bring the Rabbi Shaul says you could bring the carcass to Bezdin, and then they'll decide how this carcass was worth when it died, and from that point and on, all you have to do is make the owner of the animal whole. Okay, and Tanna Kamma, since they don't use this drasha of Yovi Adudi Lebezdin, they hold Pchas Nevela belongs to the Mazik. The Pchas Nevela is not on the Nizik, but it's on the Mazik, and therefore it doesn't matter if he brings the Nevela now, because it's going to still be his responsibility from the time that it dies till the time that you go to Bezdin. Answers the Gemara, like, not true. The Kuli Alma, everybody holds the Nizik. When Pchas Nevela, the loss of the diminishing value, is on the Nizik. But the question that the machlokes between Abba Shaul and the Tanna Kamma is something different. B'torech Nevela Komipalga. They're arguing who has the responsibility to bring the Nevela back to where it started from. So, for example, in a Nevela, if you killed an animal and now the animal's dying, is dead, it's on who has to bring that dead animal back to the owner's house. And this is Brisa is saying what Abba Shaul was going to say. Acherim say, Menayim shal bal habar lahale shor mibare. How do you know that if a guy dug a pit and a shark fell into the pit and died, who has to bring the shor out of the pit? Talmud Loima, it's on the owner of the bar. The owner of the mazik has to bring the shor from the pit back to the top of the pit. The Talmud Loima kesef yoshev labala v'hameis, and this is what Abba Shaul said, that Yoviaduda lebezdin, it means that the mazik has to make sure that the carcass was returned to its original starting position. That is the opinion of the Abba Shaul. But the Tanna Kamma holds no, it's on the nizik to take care of that. Okay, so that it would be the machlekes over there. But the diminishing value from the time that the animal dies, it's really all losses from the animal from the time that it dies till the time that you go to court. That really is on the nizik, and he has to take care of that animal, make sure it's sold right away, or do something with that. What does it mean that if the animal fell into a pit, right? It's on the owner of the pit to bring the animal to the top of the pit. What could it be? If when the carcass is in the pit, it's worth 1 zuz. But when it's on the edge of the pit, shavya abba, it'll be worth 4. So of course, when the owner of the pit brings up the animal from the bottom of his pit, he's really saving himself money, because by bringing it to the top of the pit, they're going to value that carcass as 4 zuz. So you'll pay the difference. If you left it in the pit, they'll value the carcass as only 1 zuz. So of course the mazik is going to bring the nevela up from the pit. So why does the pasuk have to tell me that kesef yoshev labalav hameis, that the mazik has to return the dead carcass back to the top of the pit? Of course he's going to do that. He's going to save himself money. Amalei, so Rava explained, not always. The Beberi Shavizuga, Bagudaname Shavizuga. Very interesting teretz. That sometimes it's a possibility that while it's in the pit, the carcass was worth 1 zuz. Even if it's at the edge of the pit, it still will be worth 1 zuz. Now, and therefore the Torah says, nevertheless, even though it's the same price, you still the obligation to bring up the carcass to the edge of the pit, that onus is on the mazik. Says the Gemara, is there something like that in life? And it's possible. The Amar Inche Keshura B'masa Bezuze Keshura B'davra Bezuze. Sometimes you have a tree, a beam in the city. When you pay the shipping costs, it's still worth a zuze. But that same beam, B'davra, in the forest is also worth a zuze. People don't consider the shipping costs of transferring it from the field, from the forest to the city. So same thing, sometimes you'll find a situation where in the pit it's worth 1 zuz, and on the edge of the pit is worth 1 zuz. And nevertheless, the Torah puts the onus to bring up that carcass on the mazik. Okay, no Gemara. Amar Shmuel said, Ein shaman loy leganav loy legazin elanizokin. Remember we said that the carcass is taken into the payment, right? But that's only by damages. What happens if somebody steals an animal, right, and it died? Or so can he say to the owner, that the person that he stole from, okay, here's your dead animal, let me pay you the difference? You don't do that. You don't appraise for a ganef or a gazlan. That's what Shmuel said. Va'ani oimer, and Shmuel said, I also say af l'shoyel. Also to a shoyel, a borrower, if he borrowed something and something happened, you can't. We don't know. Va'abba moideli, and Rav would agree to my opinion of what happens by a shoyel. The Gemara asked the question, Hachi Kamma, what did he mean to say? After the shoyel shamim va'abba moideli, Dilma Hachi Kamma va'ani oim after the shoyel ain't shamim va'abba moideli. Did he think that by a borrower you actually do appraisals, or did he? And Rav agrees to me, or maybe he says by a borrower you don't do appraisals, and Rav would agree to me. What does it mean you don't do appraisals by a borrower? Look at the following story. The Tashema, come in here. The Hu Gavra, there was this person, the Shol Nagra Makavri. He borrowed an axe from his friend, Tavare, and the axe got broken. So can you just go with the pieces of the axe and go to the owner of the axe and says, here's part of your axe and I'll pay you the difference? Asi Lakami the Rav, they came before Rav, Amalei, Zil Shalem Narga Ma'alya, go pay a brand new axe. Shmamina ain't shamim. We don't do estimations on the carcass or the pieces itself, but for a borrower, you don't do any appraisals. He has to replace the axe that he borrowed. Says the Gemara, Was that the whole story? Adarabba. Mida Amalei Rav Kahana Ravasi Rav Kahana Ravasi, students of Rav, said to Rav, Dina Hache, are you sure that's the din? For Shosek, and then Rav was quiet. Maybe he backtracked. He says, maybe you could give back to the person that lent you the axe some of the pieces. Shma min hashaman, you do estimate. So the Gemara concludes this whole conversation. Itma, Ula Amar Lazar. This is the point of this Gemara. Ula, in the name of Rabbi Lazar, Shaman Leganav Legazlim. You actually do appraisals for Ganav and Gazlim. If something happened, the Ganav could return the broken item that he stole and just pay the difference. But Rapapi Amar, no, ain't Shaman. We're strict on a Ganav. We don't do any appraisals. The Hilkasa ain't Shaman. We don't do any appraisals. Loy Leganav, Loy Legazlim. Aval Shoyel, a borrower, Shaiman, he could pay the carcass or the pieces of the axe back. We do appraisals of how much is worth. And of course, by Nizakin, we just learned that you can return the Nevela also is taken into the payment. Rav Kahana, Rav Asi, like Rav Kahana in the name of Rav Asi. Now the Gemara just goes on a bunch of side points, nothing to do with Nizikin. So we're just going to read the side points and see what we can get out of it. Halachas that are not related so much here. But Shilya in Masechta Nida, Shilya, a person, a lady delivered a placenta, came out of her, and without blood, okay? Now, a lady that gives birth without blood, the Torah tells us she becomes tamei, even though it's hard to imagine how that's possible. But in the Torah's world, it's possible. And therefore, Shilya, if a lady gave birth to a placenta. Now, you don't know, maybe in that placenta was a child in that placenta. But let's say half the placenta came out on day one, on Sunday, and half the placenta, the other half, came out on Monday. So the Mainin Law Minarisha, we consider the first day as the day that the first half that came out, right away she's Tameh, because we are afraid that maybe in that placenta bag there was some dissolved embryo in there, and maybe most of the embryo is in that bag that came out on the first day, and therefore she's Tameh on day one. Amalei, even though the other half came out on day two. Amalei Rava, so Rava said, "My daitach, what are you thinking? L'chumra, you're going strict. Chumra da'asli de kulehu. That's going easy. Why? The komatartla mirishan. If you start counting from day one, that means she's going to finish up much earlier. Had you counted from day two, because really on these halachas you have to wait 14 days. You have 14 days of tameh. So by day 15 you're going to become tahar, but maybe most of the baby was born on day two, and therefore, really, day 15 should be day 14 of Tumah. So it's going to lead to something that's Kula. So how could, and that you're going to call her Tar on day 15 when really she's not Tar. Ela Amar Rava said, Lachish Chayshashes Mimna Lo Mimne Ela Lasheni. You're right. Tameh, we say you're Tameh from day one. And maybe the lady, anything she touches, she's Tameh. But to count the 14 days of a lady of 14 days of Tumah, that you only count from day number two. Tanina, so the Gemara says, "My kamashmala." What's the idea of the novelty of Ula Amar Ablaza? The ancient Mikta Shilya B'Leivlat. It's impossible to have a placenta without a baby. In other words, if there was a possibility to have a placenta without a baby, then you would always say that she's tahar. Because maybe in her placenta that came out partially, there was no baby. And even if there was a baby, maybe not the majority of the baby came out. So she's tar. So the point of Ula said in the name of Laza, there is no possibility of a placenta without coming. A placenta always has some of the dissolved embryo in there. But if that's the chiddush of Ula Amar Ablaza, Tanina, that's a brisa. Shilya shalatzu b'ksasa, esura b'achila, that means that a shilya, an animal that gave birth, that gave the placenta out already, you can't eat that placenta even though you slaughtered the animal, because maybe because our understanding is that in that placenta there was a birth over there, and that placenta becomes asur b'achila because once it came out of the animal, it's not nichshar, it doesn't become kosher through the shechita of the animal. So simon v'la be'isha, simon v'la behema. So the Gemara says, imam asnisen. If you learned from the Mishnah, havamina, I would have thought. We go to Amud Beis. The yes mixture silya b'loy vlad. You have to see Rashi, but the point here is that from that Mishnah, I would still say that there's a possibility of to have an embryo, a placenta without a baby in there, without a melted embryo in there. And it's there, it would be exera. That's why we said you can't eat the entire placenta, because maybe if in the case when the entire placenta came out, if you said you could eat miktsas, then you'll say when the entire placenta came out and then goes back in, you're going to say it becomes kosher with the shechting of the mother. So therefore, you don't really see that idea. But kamash malam, that is the idea. That is the novelty of what Ula Amar Ablaza said, that whenever a placenta comes out, you for sure know that there's some baby in that placenta. Nu Gemara. Va'amar Ula Amar Ablaza. We know a baby is born, you have to give it a pidyon aben, right? After 30 days. Here comes a new halacha. Bechor shenitraf b'soich lamed yoim ein pidyon oisei. If a bechor, a baby bechor, was killed within the 30 days, you don't do pidyon aben. The Torah tells you give a pidyon aben. Yochel, I would have thought, even if the baby was killed during the first 30 days, you still have to do a pidyon aben. The Torah added the word ach. It says not always. For sure, if a baby doesn't live, dies within the 30 days, then it's clear that this baby wasn't going to live for 30 days. But when a baby is killed, most likely this baby, had it not been killed, would have lived past 30 days. So I would have thought that you have to give it a pidyon aben. The Torah gives ach limits that only if the baby is still alive after 30 days, you give a pidyon aben, but that's it. If a baby got killed, then there's no mitzvah pidyon aben. Another thing, Ula said in the name of Ablaza, behema gasa niknis b'mashicha. To acquire a large animal, you have to pull it towards you. Frag the Gemara vanan tanan that we learned in the Mishnah b'masira, that you could acquire a big animal by just handing over the reins to the purchaser. You don't have to pull the animal. And says the Gemara, who the amakai tana Ula holds like the following tana. Tanya we learned that Raisa v'chachamim aimer zu v'zu b'mashicha. Shimon aimer zu v'zu b'hagba. Chachamim say a small animal, large animal, you just have to pull the animal. Shimon says zu v'zu b'hagba. Even a large animal, you have to lift it. How do you lift an elephant? You have to put it on like we learned before. You make it something that it could stand on. It's like high grass or something like that, and then that's how you lift that animal, causing it to jump. Another minute, and we'll stop. Ula Ablaza. Ula said in the name of Ablaza, the following story. You have brothers that are dividing up the assets. Now, before they divided up the estate, one of the brothers took the daddy's checkbook and bought himself a Brioni suit. So ha'achin shecholku, brothers that are dividing up the estate, masha aleim, all the suits that they bought, shaman, they have to appraise that, because one guy purchased that suit before the assets were divided. But if you already purchased clothing for his children before the estate was divided, you let the guy get away with it, because the other brother probably was meichelim. Mashal b'neim, but b'nei seim ain't shaman. What's on their boys and little girls, you don't have to appraise that, because you don't want to bring the little kids to Bezdin and said, okay, your father bought those clothing for you prior to him, prior to the division of the estate. He wasn't supposed to do that. So let's see how much it's worth, and we'll split that with the other brother. We don't want to bring little kids to Bezdin, so therefore we let them get away with it. But the guy himself, one of the brothers who took the money and bought himself a suit with it, there we actually make him come back to Bezdin. We see the value of that suit, and we split that, then we give partial to the other brother that did not buy the suit. Whatever that's on them, we don't estimate. We'll stop over here. Sometimes, if one brother, before the estate was divided, bought himself a suit, we'll allow him to keep it. Why? If this is the older brother that does the transactions on behalf of the family,
all the brothers agree that he's allowed to buy himself a suit because to look good, so that his words will be heard and he'll be able to negotiate on behalf of the estate properly. So they let him keep that suit even prior to the actual division of the estate. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow with Amar Ablaza.
Yeah.